Good afternoon everyone, and thanks for joining us for this review of round 9 of the Telstra Premiership. I'm going to get straight into it today, and I wanted to start off by talking about probably the topical issue over the weekend, which was respect of for match officials. Obviously we saw an incident or a game over the course of the weekend where there was a fair amount of discussion around one of our match officials and her performance in a game between the Bulldogs and the West Tigers. But I want to talk more broadly than that. I want to talk about just the general issue of respect for match officials and giving them, I guess, the opportunity to perform to the best of their ability. And I'm talking to players and I'm talking to fans, I'm talking to everybody really, because whether we like it or not, or whether people who are watching today like it or not, we have no game if we have no match officials. And some people might think, well, that'd be better, but it certainly wouldn't be. We'd have mayhem on the field if we didn't have match officials. And they're all out there doing their best. I don't know how many of us would like to walk around for a couple of hours a day with 12 cameras following our every move and replaying everything we do in slow motion and on freeze frame in high definition, and then having people tear it apart whether you've done it correctly or whether you haven't. But it's not an easy job, and it's a job that these people train many years for. They work their way through the system and they get to the NRL level based on their ability. And of course there'll be times where their decisions will be brought into question and where people will have different views. And not every time when their decisions are brought into question does it mean that there's an error. It just means there are differing views on what in many cases are very, very close and very, very contentious decisions. So I think it's incumbent on everybody, particularly our players on the field, to show a level of respect to the match officials, the same level of respect that we expect the match officials to show to players. So I wanted to open on that, and I'll move on to some incidents, but I'm happy to take any questions on that before we do move on, if anyone has any.
Well, Graham, do you think that the behaviour of players on the field towards match officials leads to comments by fans, etc.? Do you think it's a responsibility of the players to, I suppose, set the right tone?
Well, I think they do have a responsibility, and I'm the first to admit and to understand that it's a high pressure environment. Everyone's under pressure, everyone's trying to win. It's a very physical and emotional game. I'm the first to admit that. But there are certain boundaries that can't be crossed. And decisions will be questioned from time to time. Captains have the right to approach the referee and ask the reason for a decision. But again, there's a bit of a misunderstanding even about that, because the rules allow players to ask the reason for a decision. It doesn't give them a right to have a full-blown debate about whether the decision's right or wrong. It doesn't give them the right to approach referees and apply pressure to them to try and influence a decision. There's nothing in the rules that allows that to happen. It gives them the right to say, what was that decision for, and the referee to give an answer. Now, I know it's never going to be that clinical in an NRL environment. There'll always be a banter back and forth, and there'll be the discussion about some decisions, but there has to be a point where we cut it off and we say, okay, let's get on with the game. So yes, the players do have a responsibility in that regard, but there's a broader responsibility to everyone involved in the game. We need coaches, club officials, we need fans to understand that it's a tough job, and to understand that not every decision that they don't like necessarily is an error. It's just they don't like the decision. When you've got very, very tight decisions and the decision can only go one way or the other, in any of those tight decisions we're going to have half of the viewing fans are going to be unhappy. But there has to be a level of understanding and acceptance that goes with the game. Now, I'm not trying to take the passion out of the game. I'm not trying to stop people from supporting their club, from being 100% committed to their club. But it's when it goes over the line, when we see some of the keyboard warriors that want to attack people maliciously and harmfully online, that we need to say, no, that's just not acceptable. That never used to happen because we didn't have keyboard warriors in eras gone by, but we have now. And these people hide behind that. They're anonymous. They can say whatever they want. But it's the impact that it has not only on the match official, if it's directed at a match official, or if it's directed at anyone, whether it's directed at a club official, whether it's directed at a player, which we do see a lot. It encourages other people to do the same thing. So it has this knock-on effect. And so we need people to just pull back a little bit and have a little bit of understanding. Sure, you might not like a decision, and there will be errors. I'm not hiding from the fact that there'll be errors, but the number of errors compared to the number of so-called contentious decisions is very small. And we have captain's challenges to try and get those things right. We have the bunker. People say, well, the bunker is too intrusive into the game, and we see the bunker get involved too often. We have the bunker to try and get more decisions right so that we have less controversy in games. So all of these factors that people want to complain about are all intended to try and get more decisions right. Captain's challenge, bunker reviews, match officials with touch judges, with audio communication, but there'll still be a percentage of decisions that people want to argue about. And we come here and we pull the games apart and we talk honestly about when we get things wrong, and we defend our position when we think we've got things right based on public commentary. But and we're happy to do that. We are happy to do that. But we just can't cross that line where it becomes a disincentive for people who want to be involved in our game. It becomes a disincentive for us to attract young referees. Referees who in 10 years' time might be refereeing in the NRL, but they won't be refereeing in the NRL if they say, no way, I'm not doing that, not with that level of criticism.
You say disincentive, but Casey Badger.
Bit of a trailblazer for female referees. That's what I guess you're getting at. You don't want to turn female referees away from the game too.
I don't want to turn any referees away from the game. And this is not a gender issue, and my discussion today is not about gender, because even when referees do make mistakes, they don't make mistakes because of their gender. They make mistakes because they're human. And every human on the planet makes mistakes, whether it be in their daily work, whether it be in their personal lives. No one could put hand on heart and say, I've never made a mistake. In my job, in my, things that I've said to my family or things that I've done at home, no one can do that. And we somehow have this expectation that rugby league referees should get everything right. But not only should they get everything right, they should get everything right in my eyes, or in the eyes of the viewer, who have a different set of eyes looking at it than someone who supports the other team. So they can't get it all right to everyone's satisfaction. And there just needs to be some degree of acceptance of that. And and I do address my remarks today to players and to coaches and to club officials and to fans, to everybody involved in the game. And whether they're criticising match officials, whether they're criticising Andrew Abdo or the Commission, whether they're criticising a club CEO or a player on the field because a player has done something that's cost a team a win, dropped the ball with the line wide open or whatever, and gets castigated and attacked on social media. We need to have a better level of tolerance in our game for what are human errors.
I know gender's not an issue,
But it's just the optics, Graham. When you see a player standing over the top of a female ref, it just always looks worse than it does, say, a male ref.
Well, of course, but we have to remember that it doesn't only happen to female referees. There are plenty of players that have stood over, when I say stood over, have towered over referees, male referees, and have attempted to exert some influence. So it's not a gender issue. And you have to remember too that in this particular case, Casey Badger has, I think that was her third NRL game. So she's a rookie referee. And players will try and test rookie referees, regardless of gender. And that's been happening for as long as I've been involved in the game. They'll see how far they can push them. And again, that's okay. We accept that, and the referees accept that. They accept that they will be tested, particularly when they're new in the NRL. But we have to know where that line in the sand is and not overstep that mark, because it can have consequences that aren't even intended by the player when they approach the referee. It can incite the fans, and we can see incidents that flow from that. So there's a level of responsibility on everybody involved in the game, and I get the emotion, I get the passion, but sometimes you've just got to think twice before you act.
Can there be tougher action, like we've seen a number of incidents now where referees have been pushed or pushed? We've seen dissent. Can there be tougher action against players who commit those offences?
Well, the referees have to decide that. I'm not here to babysit the referees on the field, right? They've got the whistle in their hand. They've got the ability to take action against players through penalties, through sin bins, through send-offs. So they have to take some responsibility for that. They've been around, as I said, they're experienced. They've been around a long time, and although they may be inexperienced in the NRL, they have to determine what's acceptable and what's not. So I'm also appealing to them when I talk about this, to make sure that they clearly do set those boundaries and they're prepared to enforce those boundaries on the field. And they'll get support from the game if they do that. It's everybody has to know where the boundaries are, set the boundaries in the case of the match officials, and of course the match review committee and the judiciary, they have to do the same thing.
How's that, Casey? Like, we're talking all about the players and whatnot. It feels like that kind of attention, regardless of whether she got some things right, some things wrong, would be quite how she handled it all.
Look, referees are brought up putting up with criticism, but of course it has the potential to affect everybody, and even just knocking around confidence. And I'm not suggesting that she's in that boat at the moment, but it comes back to what I said earlier about the more unwarranted criticism that they are subjected to, the more it's likely to affect their confidence, the more that's likely to impact on performances, the more that's likely to impact on people who want to become match officials, referees. The more it can also impact what happens at junior games. If we've got junior referees out there who, doing it because they love the game, they might make a little bit of pocket money doing it, but we see so many that just want to walk away from the game because they're out in the park on a Saturday or Sunday and they've got players, running at them and screaming at them. They've got parents on sidelines screaming at them. It's not the type of environment that we want in our game. And again, I say that passion is fine, supporting your team is fine, disagreeing with decisions is fine. It's how you do it.